Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. It has been a bit of a dive watch heavy week this week with the almost amazing $200 Chronos on Wednesday, the flawed but fun $1,000 Duxer Sub 200 on Friday, and today a watch best described as 44mm of awesome. It is of course the Casio MDV 106 aka the Duro. I could have called this one $55 of awesome because that's the average asking price. Now this is a re-review for me. I looked at a Duro maybe about 3 years ago now when they were in the 40s, so there has definitely been a little bit of price creep over that period. I still think this watch offers fantastic value for money if you can pick one up for around 60 US dollars or less. With a couple of caveats, a couple of conditions. The first is that size 44mm. Now 44mm is on my upper limits. I know it's going to be a great size for a lot of guys though. The second caveat is the fact that it is quartz. Now Casio do not make automatic watches, they just don't make mechanical watches. I have reviewed a ton of their digital offerings and a number of their lower end G-Shock ranges, but I've only looked at one of their three-handers in spite of the fact that they do a bunch of them under the Edifice line and even the Oceanus line as well. They've been making this one for about 10 years and it has developed a real cult following in that period, including one rather famous owner. Let's flip the camera and have a look at it. Yeah, so somewhere between 50 and 60 US dollars depending on where you're picking these up. I'll leave links to eBay and to Amazon in the description of the video. Prices are much of a muchness. Somewhat ironically, I picked up this one at the beginning of the year, the black dial version, about 2 weeks before they released those blue dials and the black and gilt. Perhaps there will therefore be another Casio Duro in my future at some point, but more on that later. Packaging is basic, shall we say, the same as you'd get with a $20 Casio. I tell you what else is pretty basic. That resin band is pretty basic. It is rather rudimentary. It'll do to start, but with 22mm lug width, what I'm going to do today, I'm going to rattle through dimensions and specs of this one, and I'm then going to do a bit of a strap fashion show because chances are, as watch collectors, we've all got a bunch of 22mm straps in the cupboard by now. Perhaps even a selection like this. So I'm going to show you on all of these later on. We have got a sailcloth, a canvas and calf, HORWEEN, single pass NATO, Marine Nationale and isofrane rubber. So one dimension has already been discussed, 44mm in diameter. 12.3mm thick, 49 lug to lug, so it's a big boy across the middle, but it's not particularly big lug to lug, and combined with the fact that it's relatively slim being quartz, it is quite wearable, especially if you get it off this really quite stiff resin band. 22mm lug width as mentioned as well today, and on the supply resin band this one weighs in at 90 grams, so it's big but it's not particularly heavy. Stainless steel construction, stainless steel bezel, crown, screw down crown, 200 meters of water resistance. So we have a proper dive watch, proper capable dive watch, screw down case back as well. Some nice details that I'll show you later on. 120 click unidirectional rotating bezel. I forgot just how good the bezel action on this Duro is. There's a tiny little bit of backplay, but for a $55, $60 watch, that is remarkable. Nice aluminium insert in there with a lume pip as well. And for the money, I think it is well finished, mostly high polished. There's a little bit of fine brushing on the lugs. There's even a little chamfered edge transitioning between the side of the case and the upper lug here. Crown guards, unside crown, I'm not going to complain about that for the money. As with the Orient Komatsu, if you have a look at it, if you have a look at some of these polished surfaces when they catch the light, you can see kind of ripples, slight imperfections. I guess limitations is more accurate and a more reasonable reflection of what I'm talking about here. You know, a $55 watch is not going to be finished like a Swiss luxury watch because you simply can't get that for the money. But for the price paid, I think this is very nicely done. And the etched marlin on the case back is nothing too fancy, it's not particularly detailed, but it is a nice little touch. So Japanese movement, but cased in China. Module here is a 2784 3-hand quartz plus date. Stated tolerances of this one are plus to minus 30 seconds per month accuracy. Chances are though it's going to come in closer to zero. So this one is as accurate or inaccurate depending on your perspective over a month as your average cheap auto is over the course of a day. I think everybody should have at least one quartz watch in their collection. I cannot tell you the number of times I have looked down disconsolately at my watch box to find everything stopped with the wrong time and the wrong date. It's quite nice to be able to just grab and go with one of these, as they say. And I think that is really quite a good looking watch as well. It is just super clean. Strong sunburst effect on the dial. You can see it here. I'll put in some outdoor shots later on. Very, very noticeable outside actually. Now I believe it is a printed dial. The indexes are kind of pushed through from the back, so they are not applied. They're not stuck on as such. You can see just little kind of warps in the dial if I get it at the right angle, but that is not a criticism. I think it looks really good overall. Love the fact that they've just stuck with black, white, silver and a touch of red on the second hand. Even the handset is quite attractive, kind of faceted down the middle, and there is a segmented arrowhead hour hand and a kind of fairly basic fence post sized minute hand. Little date frame around the complication at the 3 o'clock there, just printed on, and that marlin printed on again there. It makes an appearance on the back of the watch and the front of the watch, and advertising the 200 meters of water resistance. There's a chapter ring with a minute track around the outer edge. Everything lines up, including the bezel insert. $55. It's clean, it's handsome, it's well made. Yeah, there's a real purity, I think, about this Duro. I love the colour tones. I love the way it looks overall. It's just a sharp piece of design, proving that good design doesn't have to cost you a fortune. So I've got a 7-inch wrist. Like I said, 44 is at the kind of outer edges of my personal kind of preference window. Not that it's an unwieldy or unwearable watch. 49 lug to lug is by no means the biggest lug to lug that I have looked at. This strap I think doesn't do it any favours because it flares out beyond the 22mm lugs. It tend to make it look a little bit bulky, and it's also quite stiff and unforgiving, but that is easily resolved, as I'll show you in a minute or two. Looks good from the overhead as well. That's where that super sharp, super clean design really does pay dividends when it comes to at a glance legibility. Outside, sunny day in Sydney today, and you can see what I mean about the real extreme sunburst effect that comes off that dial. In bright sunshine, it's a mineral crystal, so you're not getting sapphire here. It's not going to be scratch proof either, so if you are going to wear one of these as a long termer and you're going to wallop it around, you're going to get some scratches on that mineral crystal as well. I doubt there's much anti-reflective coating on the underside, which means that sunburst effect is really quite pronounced. It's not as legible in sunshine as it is in mid-light conditions or indoor conditions. On wrist, curvature to the mid case is quite reasonable for a big boy. 12.5mm thick means you can muck around with other straps, you can wear it on NATOs. It's not going to be too bulky or too bobbly, I don't think. Alright then, let's get on with this fashion show. You can see what an immediate difference it makes getting it off that flared resin and onto something a little bit more expensive, admittedly, in the form of this sailcloth with matching white stitching, but certainly more comfortable in the long run as well. With an economically priced watch like this, dare I say a cheap watch like this, I don't recommend spending massive amounts of money on straps. I recommend using what you've got lying around, and this is one of the better ones that I happen to have lying around. Now it's a dive style watch, but if you want to give it a bit more of a military vibe, then a bit of drab, a bit of olive green can never go too far wrong. This is a canvas and calf. It's got a canvas upper but leather backing, so you get the comfort, but you still get the ability to take this one into the pool, into the sea with you. 200 meters of water resistance. That is what this watch is all about. Nothing to stop you dressing it up occasionally though. This is a nice bit of fresh HORWEEN from my friend Rob at Geneva Blue, who sells various straps. I'll leave a link to his website in the description of the video. Nice and soft and supple. Because it's such a clean piece of design, because the colours are so understated, you could totally get away with this one as an office watch as well if you wanted, on a bit of leather. I'm not a massive fan of NATOs, but if I am going to wear one, then I prefer one of these single pass style rather than a double pass. Less chance of bobbling, but at 12.5mm thick, you can afford a couple of mil of nylon underneath, I'm sure. One of these Marine Nationale style paratrooper elastic straps, also a good way of limiting the amount of material underneath the watch and also ensuring a good fit, meaning it won't bobble on you. Or go crazy with some delicious smelling bright orange Italian isofrane rubber. I think Casio designed this watch with strap swaps in mind because there are some decent sized indents in the case, allowing even bigger, chunkier straps to fit the lugs. So a lot to like, but what do I not like? What are my moans and niggles? Well, the size I've talked about, and the fact that it's quartz I've talked about. But to be honest, both of those things could go either way. For some people, quartz will be a positive, and for some people, 44mm will be a positive. This slightly masochistic Resin band here is also definitely on the negative list today, as is the lume. Lume is so often the Achilles heel of the sub $100 dive watch, and that is no exception here. It is the Achilles heel of the Casio Duro. It looks okay initially, but once I crank up the speed, you can see the index is vanishing very rapidly, shortly followed by the lume pip and the handset. But that is a very short list of complaints for a $60 watch, and I did mention one famous owner. If it's good enough for Bill Gates, it's probably good enough for you and I. The billionaire philanthropist has been seen with the Casio Duro on his wrist on more than one occasion. I think, to be honest, he's making more of a statement about Bill Gates than he is about the Casio Duro, but considering he could have picked any watch in the world, indeed any cheap watch in the world, the fact that he picked this one, I think, speaks volumes. But go on, Bill, treat yourself to a new strap, mate. Nobody will think less of you if you do, I promise. So there you have it, the Casio Duro. If you're okay with the size and you're okay with the quartz, awesome, awesome watch, highly recommended. I think everybody should have at least one quartz piece in their watch box as discussed, and there are far worse and far more expensive quartz watches out there than this one. I have heard a bit of a rumour they might be updating this one soon. Stay tuned for further details. Thanks for watching. I will see you in a future video.